welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and this one is actually going to be on the 3 road bikes I own from the 70s. First one is this Kawasaki 750 H2, 750 two-stroke, and we were all running around on mopeds, and the very thought of a 750 two-stroke was just crazy to us. How could such a manic, fast bike exist? That was 1974, this example. And then Honda, 1978, launched the Honda CBX, 1000cc and 6-cylinder, 4 valves, 6 carburetors. Oh, to about 19-year-old, it was just as good as it got. And then September 98, Kawasaki came out with a Z1300, 120 horsepower this thing produced. Anyway, this video, I'm going to do them in 3 separate videos, and this particular video I'm going to concentrate on the Honda CBX. Now, this example I've owned for just over 2 years. It's an American CBX, which you can tell because it's got the higher bars. I would love it to be a UK version because they actually got lower handlebars and a slightly different foot peg arrangement just because of the lower bars. But it was a stunning example. It's unrestored. It is 26,000 miles from new, and it just rides absolutely magic how this rides. The other thing, if you know CBXs, they don't come, this is not a standard exhaust. This is a 6x6 exhaust. I have the standard exhaust and I fully intended putting it on, but the more I've lived with this CBX, the more I think a 6x6 exhaust is what it should have had in the first place, and it howls as this goes towards the 9,500 RPM red line. So what happened? Just a brief history. Why does this bike exist in the first place? Why did Honda do this? They came out 1969, Honda CB750. When we're all rattling around on our British leaking motorbikes and things, Honda gave us the CB750 that had electric start, 4 cylinders, and just worked straight out the box, 120 miles an hour, and it completely changed motorbiking for everyone, right around the world. And I don't think there's been a bike that made such a bigger splash as the 750, CB750. Kawasaki then came along, Z1, 900cc, 73 I think that was, and that basically took over the superbike mantle, and Honda wanted to get that back. And they looked at their history, and what was the greatest bike they'd ever produced? It was thought to be the Honda 250 6-cylinder bike Mike Hailwood rode to huge success, and some other riders as well. 4 valves cylinder, crazy 6 megaphones coming out the back of this small 250 Grand Prix bike. Technical tour de force, and it was almost Honda's greatest moment in motorbikes. And they thought, you know what, if we want to get our superbike crown back, we need a 6-cylinder bike, and this was it. And it was, Benelli had a 6-cylinder on the market as well, but that was actually developed from the Honda 550, and it was sort of Italian bike, had a few issues, but it was almost a single cam. Honda, when they came out with this, it was extraordinary engineering. And as just an observer, just the way that engine is on show, look at that, the confidence of the cantover like that, and the 6-cylinder and the width and the twin cam so obviously here hanging out the frame, and the 6 carburetors. It was like nothing you'd ever seen. It was Honda just trying to prove a point. We know engineering, we know motorbikes, and we're going to make the greatest sports bike of all. And yeah, so that's how CBX came about. It was 105 horsepower. It was the most powerful bike on sale at the time, and it was just a shock to everyone. The one thing it was also was expensive. So you used to be able to buy a CB750 1978 at about £1,500. This was £2,800 new. It was almost double the price of the general sports bikes at the time. And then there was a sort of slight backlash. Do we actually need all this complication? Suzuki came out with a GS1000 that was almost as quick, etc. And it was funny watching CBX from the initial wow to sort of it go into decline because of this sort of backlash, saying it's too expensive, it's too complicated. And then Honda completely missed the boat on developing it. Instead of doing a sort of hotter version, they did a cruising version. They had Pro-Link suspension, they dropped the horsepower, it came with panniers and a fairing on the front and got heavier. And the market said, you must be joking. And it just quietly disappeared off the scene, I think in 82 or 83. But this is the original it's 1979, this one, it's the Z, CBX 1000Z. And this is one you all want. But I just look at it, and there's some things I can't get over. Engine completely dominates, as you can see, straight across. I love the way, if you look at this Kawasaki, this is how you normally do a frame, and the down tubes go in front of the engine like this. Not so at Honda. They said, there's no room for down tubes. We'll make the bike, the engine, part of the frame. So the frame stops there, and all you see is engine. That's all this thing was to show Honda engineering off. That's what they thought. This is a bit thin. If you look at the forks on this, they're the same size as this, this is 1974 bike. It's a bit spindly. It's a bit weak, really. They struggled on weight, so we've got plastic mudguards on here. If I go over this lump of a bike, this Kawasaki 1300, that's steel. This is 300 kilos dry. It's a monster. And this is, Kawasaki were actually working on this way before CBX. This is 120 horsepower, and it was actually banned in Germany. You're only allowed up to 100 horsepower in Germany, so you couldn't buy this in Germany. They actually did a restricted version, actually, but not the full fat one like that one. We'll come to that another time. But they tried to keep the weight down of this, to keep it sporting. And it was quick. It was a quoted 11 a bit standing quarter, 112 miles an hour, something like that, and 140 mile an hour top speed. For a naked bike like that, that is very quick. And I say naked, it's a technical term in bike world, no fairing whatsoever. You are in the breeze. All three of these are like that. And I like that because it keeps the speed down on road. If you go 100 miles an hour on this bike, you think the world's going to end. God knows what 140 miles an hour feels like. It's very clever engineering on this Honda. One of the things they did to try and narrow the bike, you imagine a 6-cylinder bike would be very wide. It's not that much wider than a 750. And because what they did was, there's normally an alternator sitting there and the electronics. That's the ignition pack is actually there. They actually put it above the engine rather than on the end of the crankshaft. Go around here. This is the sort of generator, and it sits there rather than on the end of the engine, and that narrowed it up. I mean, it's still wide engine, and when you're riding it, they also angled in those carburetors, 6 carburetors, but you can just see when you actually have it, they're not in line with the head. They're at a slight angle, all of them, and it's remarkably narrow for a 6-cylinder bike, but it's all engine. And I find actually when I go, you'll see when we ride it, you can sort of scratch it a bit. You can certainly put more lean on than you expect you can, and way more than that Kawasaki that was a proper lump compared to the CBX. But I just think these 70s superbikes, hyperbike, muscle bikes, call them what you will, are a very special moment in time. And this is, I think it's the greatest air-cooled motorbike made, biggest, most glamorous bike, because they then went water-cooled on the bigger bikes. There is something glorious about the engineering all being on show like that. But it's the sound it makes, and it almost stops. I find owning this means I don't own cars like the F40 or the Porsche Carrera GT. I can get my kicks from this, and values of these have gone up, but this is, say, £15,000 motorbike, and the experience it gives is very special. So what I'm going to do now, take it outside, take it for a quick ride. I struggle with doing sound on the bikes. The voice is slightly broken up, but I want you to get a flavour of what this bike is like to ride and just how it sounds as I pull round to that 9,500 RPM red line. I have to say, with the 6 pipes, there's a sort of degree of harshness to the sound. On the CBX on standard pipes is sort of turbine smooth, sort of just going through little towns like this under 30 and stuff, trickles along. But there is a a very different sort of sound when you're on the 6x6 system. For a special bike, I don't mind it at all. If I was somehow commuting on it, I think it would get a little wearing. I'm in third at the moment, doing 30. I can take it down to first, might as well I suppose, so you can hear it. Okay, accelerate up the hill through the gears. Slow things right down. Yeah, this gives you a sense of that top end how I'd love to be able to be going quicker and show it more, but it's this two sides I love about the CBX. This easy-going nature, sort of high bars, the weight, yeah, it might be 250 kilos. I don't notice the weight at all. It's the easiest bike to handle, and it's got all this low down torque, and it's, yeah, you sit up high, great view. Easy, you know, it's not a, doesn't feel a big bike when you're astride it, when you look at it, and it's enormous, but it has a very exciting top end, a sparkle to it that you wouldn't quite expect when you're just around like that, but that's the beauty of sort of sports bikes. But yeah, it's an exciting bike, especially being naked, as it were, and with these higher bars. Yeah, over 80 miles an hour is quite something. Try it through here. I mean, the suspension isn't great on this, especially at the rear end. The shockers aren't the best in the world, and it's a bit bouncy, but hey, we forgive it. It's 1978. Good brakes, for 1978, really good brakes, and power out. It makes a really nice road bike. That gave you an idea what this bike's like to ride. Some of the other things on this bike, they are fickle, they need maintenance with keeping everything in tune. The 6 carburetors, they quite like getting it slightly out of tune. They don't like fuel sitting in them for too long, so I always use the storage fuel on this bike and that sort of thing. But actually, it's a pretty robust bike, and because they sold 25,000 or thereabouts of this Z model, this first edition worldwide, spares are pretty good. The backup for this bike is very good indeed. And They are about. They have been collectible for some time now. So there's some fantastic examples out there. If you really want to learn about CBX, there's a glorious book. It's about 450, 500 pounds now. You see them occasionally on eBay that gives the complete backstory to this, including the design of it, and then features some of the bikes from the late 70s, 80s when this used to go street racing with this and reasonably successful. I just love it for its simplicity. I can park it over in the corner, I can come across to it, hit that button and have the most glorious rides with it. I think it's an absolute bargain for what you pay for one of these. It's weird that you can buy basically the ultimate muscle bike from the 70s for £15,000. Yes, it's a lot of money, but you just put that into car world and you'll be, you know, they're into millions, aren't they? F40 and Carrera GT, things like that. After this, they tended not to be a naked bike. You went fairing, there's some fantastic sports bikes. But for me, I want the bike to appear like this, where everything is on show. It's glorious engineering. I know the moment I open that garage, I see that 6 cylinders, those 6 pipes. I think just wow. I almost don't need to ride it that much because just the visual impact this does. And that's precisely what Honda was aiming at when it launched this bike in 1978. So absolute firm favourite in the garage, this one, and why I am so proud to own such a glorious example as this. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.